GDSC. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the GDSC Unilag storytelling session. I'm Shiona Jai, and I'll be your moderator for today. In this session, we'll be discussing the solution challenge, specifically how to pitch your solution and demo video for the next submission stage. Good morning. Thank you for everyone joining. Okay, so for those possibly unaware, oh, sorry, I keep hearing myself. Okay, so for those the GDSC Solution Challenge is a competition with the mission to solve for one or more of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, specifically using Google technology. So, our speaker for today is Lillian, who is a student and the lead for GDSC Babcock University. Lillian will be sharing with us all there is that's needed to know how to effectively pitch your solution and submit your demo video. She also be giving us a deep dive or a side dive into the judging criteria for the challenge. So I guess I'll be handing over the mic to Lillian. Thank you very much for coming, Lillian. Good morning.
Hi, Shion. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Like Shion said, my name is Lillian, and like most people on the call, I'm a regular student. I'm trying to make it through life. Hallelujah, amen. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with you guys about something as important as this because, to a large extent, the Solutions Challenge is one of the major projects that GDSCs embark on when they start the administration. So it's one of the primary things you're supposed to inform your members about and then start preparing them for it from the minute your administration starts. And so it's one of the I thought to an extent it's one of the more impactful aspects that just show the human side of Google, taking such careful attention to make sure that the goals, those 17 sustainable development goals, are treated. Because I know some undergraduate programs address, like they try to streamline the final year projects towards that. I know that's what's specifically happening in my school, for example. And so when I heard about this, it actually just fell in line, and I just thought, oh, that's amazing that Google is doing this and then making people think with a more human perspective. And so it's an honor to be here. My slides, well, it's titled The World is Your Marketplace. And well, that's primarily because I'm one of those people who just believe that with stories you can really sell to almost anybody, right? Because it calls on our ability to connect with people and really just share the little parts of ourselves that make us who we are. And being able to connect with anybody anywhere with simple words and just knowing how to use the words is one of the most powerful things to me. I just believe so that's why I called it The World is Your Marketplace. And because everything that you're learning, even if it's still streamlined towards the solutions challenge, it's still going to be something that you can use outside of here and apply in other aspects of your life. And so everything that I'm going to be explaining and I'm going to be talking about are things that you actually truly can use outside of the solutions challenge arena, because the rules are things that are generally applicable, right? And oh, so yeah, the first slide. Short story, this first slide took me such a long time to decide on because I was so nervous about how exactly I was going to introduce myself, and I didn't want it to just go from the title slide to the main thing. And then a friend of mine actually helped me out with this, and shout out to Kemi's Designs. Kemi's a UI UX designer and one of my closest friends, and she's the one that helped me decide on this cover page. So if you don't like it, she's the one that's supposed to go and meet. But yeah, and so we're going to begin. Words, phrases, and imagery. Now, the important thing for you to note when you are preparing to tell a story, when you're preparing to pitch an idea, preparing to make somebody listen to you, is that to a large extent, this social challenge is something where you are not going to be physically meeting with the people who have the power to decide your fate, as it were, in this situation, right? And so you are depending a lot, that they are going to be depending a lot on your ability to use these three instruments to put your point across as succinctly as possible. So these are going to be your weapons. And what it does is that it challenges you to see about your magician side, your ability to make somebody disappear from where they are and put themselves inside your story, to follow you on the journey from the problem to the solution and the successful execution of that solution as well. And so using language is how we're able to weave these images together. And so whether it's English or whatever, although the official language for Solution Challenge is English, but outside of this context, like whatever language it is that you're using, you pay attention to the kind of words that you use to make sure that the person you're speaking to can relate to those particular words, right? So synonyms, if there is a simpler way for you to explain something, always go for the simplicity of things. And that one across board, like it's a winner any day. It's just leave behind the big words, go with simple things as much as possible, put your points across fast and leave the place. And stories are dynamic. So whatever situation it is that you're trying to explain, whatever your solution is, there is a story that you can use to pass your points across that will be different from the one that other people are using. And so now we're going to talk about jab, 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 right hook. So there is a New York Times best-selling author called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he has this book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and it's a book that he wrote about marketing techniques, and it's really about how, as a marketer, as someone who is trying to sell an idea or a product or a service, the thing you want to focus on is giving more than what you're asking for, and to give consistently in a way that induces these three hormones that we're going to be talking about. So, jab, 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 right hook, I think it's probably like a wrestling term. Probably that's probably where it applies the most. Is so you give, 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 and by the time you come in for the kill, your ask seems reasonable because you've taken your time to put the person on a journey that makes you seem like the most viable option for them. And so we're going to start with dopamine. And dopamine is probably one of the more common hormones that people talk about when you're explaining, I don't know, people's motivation for doing things. And you achieve dopamine by creating suspense and cliffhangers. And further down, when we're talking about the submission criteria, we're going to discuss how you can induce dopamine in there. But what dopamine does and why it's important is that it helps people with focus and motivation and memory. So if someone is telling you a story and there is an element of suspense and cliffhanger in there, what it does is that your focus is increased, your motivation is increased, and it's easier for you to remember what the person is saying because you have now become personally invested in the story. And then oxytocin is achieved when we elicit humanity and sympathy from people. So stories are really tug at someone's heart and make them think about what makes them a human being. And it increases their ability to be generous, how trusting they are, and helps them bond easier to you. So the last one is endorphins, and this one is also another popular one. And the primary way that people achieve it is by provoking laughter, because what laughter does is that more often than not, it makes people break character. So in somewhere that is as serious as your solutions challenge demo video or even your submission text as you're typing it, it is a relatively serious environment. But if you are able to induce endorphins, what it does is that it makes whoever is reading your entry at that point in time break character with humor, and so their creativity is unleashed, they're more relaxed, and then they're more invested in your story because you've given to them. And that's the concept of the jab, 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 right hook, is that you're giving before you ask, and you're giving more than what you're asking from the person. Now, moving on to functional storytelling. Functional storytelling means the story that you are using depends on who your listener is and the aim of that story. So if we are when you're doing your submission criteria, when we go to that, you'll still understand better what I'm explaining. But if they ask you a question and say something like, why did you choose the SDG that you chose for your solution? Why did you decide to focus specifically on, let's say, zero hunger, for example? There is a story that will help you put across that point, right? So what you have to do is think about the story that you're using and the aim that you're trying to achieve, and making sure that there is a straight line between what you're saying and what they're asking you to say, because what they're asking you to say is what they're expecting the answer to be. If your answer is anything different from what you're expected to say, then you can confidently say that the story has failed, and so it is not functional in the way that you expect it to be, right? And so that's for that. So for example, let's say, um let me use this to explain. So here we have, convince your mind that the most dangerous person on earth is an articulate person, right? I don't know how many people must have seen this guy, Jordan Peterson. So I first started seeing his stuff on YouTube Shorts. And I got really intrigued because I just really like psychology and the whole, just how people's minds work type of thing. And so I started just following his content. And that's actually where I got this one. And in one video, someone was asking him what he thinks makes somebody formidable. What does he think is the primary ingredient that truly, truly makes another human being a powerful person? And he said that the most powerful person on earth is the person that knows the right words to use and uses them when he needs to. Basically, pointing to articulateness is your ability to weave your words together in a way that puts your points across clearly as possible. And so there's that. And you have to step into a place where you believe that the person that can with the in fact person with the biggest amount of superpowers is the person that knows the right words to use and in every situation uses those words. Because if you don't convince your mind that there is power in your ability to tell stories, you'll never take it as seriously as you should, and you won't be as effective as you should be. And then there's listen and read more, and this one is a no-brainer because how are you going to know the right words to use if you never actually dedicate time towards learning them, right? And so I'm not even going to say go straight to books and start flipping through every Wole Soyinka and Chinua Achebe novel that you can find, but simple things like the kind of Twitter threads that you read or X threads, whatever. So those kinds of things, like where you consume content the most, you want to make sure that the content you're consuming is quality content. So when you follow certain pages on your social media, you want to make sure that you're following people who are highly literate to an extent, to the extent where when they put out content on their social media, it's content that has the kind of words that you almost have never heard of before. And it's important that you start from your social media because that's where you spend, the average person anyway, spends most of their time. And so if you don't start looking at that content in bits and pieces, you will hardly be motivated to pick up a book to read and start learning words from if you haven't already been familiar with it from the place where you get the most amount of enjoyment, right? So that's for listen and read. Man, listening, there's podcasts all over the place, and you just have to remove your mind from all these other podcasts of how much should a man be earning to make him a quality man and focus on podcasts that actually talk about real issues, economic issues, I don't know, tech issues, situations that put people in a place where they actually have to be as articulate as they can possibly be. Because what you are trying to do is to improve on how you show up in the world. And I hardly think that a podcast that sits and discusses how much a man makes that makes him a good fit for another woman that doesn't earn money, that wants to use the man's money to buy hair. Like, you see where I'm going with this. So at the end of the day, you're spending your time listening to things that are not actually building you up, but all they give you is opinions, no actual grammar, no construction of sentences. And at the end of the day, you are not a more articulate person when you step out of that place. And if you're the kind of person that wants to be a functional storyteller, you need to be an articulate person, which means you need to try and switch up the kind of content that you're consuming online. Then there's writing down your stories and indexing them by which emotion they provoke. So I heard a TEDx talk actually where one of the speakers brought this idea on, and he was saying how as human beings we're surrounded by stories, and every single day that we step out there is something that is happening to us as we are stepping out each day. What most people don't do is actually allow themselves to experience life, and this is what I'm learning to do like now in my life, is just every small moment that I have, just romanticizing the experiences that you have as a person. When you step out, do you really feel the air around you? Somebody passes you by, did you even look at the person's face? Like, we're so consumed with where we're going to, and it's so easy to get caught up in this because the world is a big place and we always have somewhere to be and something to do and someone to see. But we shouldn't allow those urgencies to take away the simple enjoyments that we're supposed to have in our lives. And so what he was saying, and I'm so sad that I've forgotten his name now because I would have put it in the comments and then you could check out the video for yourself. But then he was saying how, as you experience life, you need to be the kind of person that can note their stories and remember them. And so that's why he said writing it down is the best way, because then when you are looking at making a pitch deck for something, you can then go to your story bank and search through them. And when you check them by which emotion they provoke, you say, okay, what exactly am I trying to do today? Am I trying to make this person more sympathetic to me? Am I trying to make this person more relaxed and creative? Or am I trying to make this, just checking it and then seeing which emotion am I trying to provoke, and then picking that story and using that story. And so that's what writing down your stories and indexing them by emotions means. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. Aim for simplicity, choose easy words, get the job done and get out of there. There's no need to spend so much time with verbosity when you can just say it as simply as possible and be gone. And finally, understanding your target's problem and their pursuits. Now, the problem of your targets is where they are currently. So what you want to do is begin from a perspective that every single person I'm meeting at every point in time has a particular problem that they're trying to solve. So for example, now we're talking about the solutions challenge, which means the judges that are going to be looking at your submissions, they want to see you explain a problem. It may not be a problem that they are experiencing personally, but if your story is good enough, the problem can feel almost as personal to them as anything they've ever felt before. So your target's problem is where they are, and the pursuit is their imagined future perfect situation where this problem no longer exists. And so, for example, with the YouTube Premium, I'm going to use YouTube Premium to explain this. And so, you know how when you're watching a video, for example, now if it's like Skinny Girl in Transit that just came out, right, season 7, and let's assume that they had released like 5 episodes at once and everybody rushed to go and start watching it. And before you can even go 10 minutes in, the next thing you're hearing is companies of all sizes use BigQuery, and you can't wait for the skip ad to come on. So you just press and get out of there. And then you watch another 10 minutes and it's another one. Companies of all sizes. The ad keeps interrupting your experience. So at that point in time, your problem is you need to get these ads off your page. The pursuits that you have at that point in time is a world where ads don't exist in your YouTube. And so, what YouTube does perfectly is understanding that if we load you with enough ads, at some point you'll be frustrated enough to actually pay for YouTube Premium, because you'll be thinking to yourself, I can't continue to have this thing interrupt my experience and be a problem for me when I can actually afford to get it out of the way permanently, right? And so they've understood that. And so they will load you with the ads. And before the fifth ad comes on, you already know the line. Like this BigQuery thing, I haven't actually stopped to ever listen to a BigQuery ad before, but it comes on so much that that line, that one, I know it. So that's what problem and pursuit means, is understanding where the person you're talking to is right now and where they're trying to go, because it will help you take them on a journey that doesn't disconnect them from what you're trying to say. And yeah, so that's all for functional storytelling. And now the solution challenge journey begins. So, your solution challenge journey, I like to say that it starts the minute you decide you want to participate. So, the first time you hear about it and you say, I want to participate in this thing, the journey has begun. Even if you don't have the idea at that point in time, even if you don't know how you're going to get it executed, even if you don't have your team, the journey begins the minute you decide to participate. And so, the first thing you want to do is invest in quality team building. I'm sure we'll still talk about this in detail, because it's not really the focus of my session, but I just thought to mention it so that people would just know the kind of things that they should look out for. And quality team building is essentially you saying, this solution I have right now, who are the people that I need to get it executed? And even if I don't have a solution, what kind of people am I looking for that would help, that together we could come up with something? And then after that, you want to do clear cut role distribution. Everybody knows exactly what their job is, everybody has their deadlines and the separate things that they're working on, and nobody's work is overlapping. And there's also clear line of reporting. So a program manager, a project manager is usually the best way for you to handle this type of thing, is that everybody knows this is who we are submitting all our materials to, and their job is to vet it and let us know if we're doing a good job or not. And then you want to note what influences your decision to choose a particular Google product over another one to create your solution, because this is one of the major questions in the submission list. And so we'll still discuss that. Which existing solutions did you draw inspiration from to improve on your own? Now, here, this is actually a question that I think 2 or 3 judges asked about it at the 2023 demo day. And what they're really looking out for is the extent of market research that you did before deciding that you were going to work on that particular problem. And they want to see what you have done and what other people have done in that industry that you then took and improved on. So your social challenge entry can either be a novel idea, which is something completely new, something we've never seen before, and you might just be blessed like that. Or you might be the kind of person that wants to improve on an existing solution, which means something is already on ground, but with the advent of technologies, it can be done better. And you have seen an angle that you can explore to make it a completely different product from, you know, how they say like some things, this thing could have just been a feature, it didn't need to be an entire product. So now you've actually seen something that needs to be a product on its own. And so you've taken inspiration from somewhere and you've used that to improve on the one that you want to do. And then your plans for scalability as regards the inflow of more users. Because ultimately one of the ideas behind the solution challenge is, I think it's the top three, they usually get the ability from top 100, they get the ability, they get swag and some other benefits and stuff. But I know top 10 and top three specifically get the opportunity to be mentored by a Googler. And what that does for them is that they can then go on to monetize the solution that they have built. And with monetization, it means you need to get more people to use it so that you can then make money from it and improve on the features for more people to use. And then the circle just continues. And so you also want to be clear about your plans for scalability and make sure that everyone on your team is on board with the plans from the beginning, because it's more likely that the team that does the solutions challenge entry is going to be the team that will ultimately take the solution to market. And so you want to be sure that everybody on the team is on the same page as regards how we want to handle scalability of the solution. Then you want to pay attention to the challenges that you've encountered as you are on your journey. Now, here, it's not a way of pointing to weakness. So when you see the question about talk about the challenges you've encountered, that's not the time for you to say, oh, we didn't encounter any challenges, everything was just smooth, you know, we came up with the solution, we build the code, and then we got the UI guy. It's time for you to actually to, because it's a solutions challenge. What they want to see is your ability to jump through the hurdles to make your solution a reality. So as much as possible, amplify those challenges that you face, because they happened, you've solved them, you've moved on, and that's how you have the product that you have or the service that you have. And so you don't want to lie about it. You want to be as truthful as possible. Maybe we had to do the code 15, 20 times before we finally got it. You should be able to say that, because this is the Google Developer Students Club. At the end of the day, you are not a Google developer expert, you're a Google developer student. And so you want to be able to amplify your challenges from that student perspective that shows that you're dedicated to learning and you're dedicated to the journey that brought you all the way to the demo day. Then you want to honestly note the aspects of the existing problem which your solution doesn't account for. With this one now, there was a solution that was submitted 2023. The app, I believe, is called HearSitter, if I'm remembering correctly. And what HearSitter is that it's an app for hearing impaired people. So it helps them recognize sounds in their environment. And so those who built the app did a lot of sound recognition, so you can recognize a variety. I think at that time when they were pitching it on demo day, they had about 50 or 100, I'm not sure, but they had like a good repository of sounds that the app was able to recognize. So a baby crying, glass breaking, car honking, and I think doorbell as well were some of the examples that they mentioned. But this solution that they have built, the aspect of the existing problem, which is people who have hearing disabilities, is that if you don't have a smartphone, you can't use this solution. And so when they were getting asked about what aspects of the existing problem do they think they might not have accounted for, they mentioned that they might be short-handed in terms of the amount of sounds it's able to recognize, but that they have plans for a bit of machine learning and scalability, like with TensorFlow, to sort out that aspect. But this was another one that I thought about, because I said, if it's an app, it can only be used, you know, on a device, and if you don't have a device, then this solution is not open to you. So you want to be able to be honest with yourself and your team, and you guys among yourself being honest with each other to say, we can't solve every single person's problem with this thing, but these are the percentage of people that we're going to be able to help, and that's fine for now. If we come up with a better solution in the future that can account for more people, we will definitely take up the chance. But if we don't, this is what we have, and nobody's going to break you over coals for it. It's your solution, this is what you came up with, and that is enough. Then now we go to the demo day. Your demo video. Demo video is 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes, I believe. If my math is not on wheelchair right now, I believe 2 minutes is 120 seconds. Then with your demo video, firstly, you want to be able to explain your problem clearly. And then you want to explain why it is a problem. So I'm going to say, if you open your video and you say 5% of girls all around the world suffer from, I don't know, speech impediments. Why is this a problem? You can't just say 5% of girls around the world suffer from speech impediment, and so we have then gone on to build this app. You want to be able to say this affects their ability to participate in school, which affects their ability to earn themselves certificates, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and whatever degrees, and then goes on to reduce the percentage of women that are able to participate in high level employment. Now you've explained the problem and you've explained why it is a problem. This is what you are doing with your statement of the problem, actually, is that you're saying this is what is on ground and this is why we need to tackle it fast, because it is then going on. And in economics, there's this thing called trickle down economics, where one problem or one problem goes on to create more problems in other different sectors, and they all become connected to a root cause. And so that is what that first point is about. You want to weave reliable and specific facts into your story. This is because data does not lie. Yes, as cliche as it sounds, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be able to give percentage, you want to be able to quantify your solution so that it is amplified to an extent where people don't have to sit and think, well, I don't believe that's such a big problem. Because, for example, if I told you right now and I said 70% of Nigerians are illiterates, some people would believe me, some people would not. The people who would not are right, because no, not 70% of Nigerians are illiterate. Actually, it's lower than that. It's much lower. It's about 39% of Nigerians that, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, are illiterates. We have a 61% literacy rate. And so, reliable and specific facts that are connected to your problem, those are the things you need to amplify in the beginning of the video with your statement of the problem, so that the problem is problematic, and somebody doesn't have to sit and think, well, I don't know why you would focus on this, because it's not such a big issue. You want to make it a big issue. You want to be specific about the SDGs and the targets you're solving for. This is because while your problem, your app, your solution might effectively handle a range of different issues directly, it won't be able to target realistically more than three. So if you, for instance, are going to be working on a solution that connects companies to tech talents, so you're going to be building an app for recruitment. Now, this your app solves almost every SDG problem except maybe tourism and, I don't know, partnerships for the goals, maybe. So you are creating jobs, which means good job. Decent work and economic growth is sorted. Zero hunger is sorted. No poverty is sorted. Gender equality is sorted. Reduced inequalities. Sustainable. Yeah, like the problem is sorting out almost everything, but directly is decent work and economic growth and maybe gender equality. So when you're doing your demo video, you don't want to list 15 different SDGs, because then it just looks confusing. And it's not every, it's thousands of entries. So it's not everybody that's going to be as patient enough to say, well, I can see why they listed 15, because the problem actually solves about 15 different issues. So everybody's going to be that patient. So you want to be able to be direct and for it to look like you know exactly what you're doing. So as much as possible, be specific, and you want to also try and narrow down to at least, maybe, I think at most take like three, and then say that those are the SDGs that you're solving for. You want to use infographics to explain how your solution works. Now, because the demo video is 120 seconds, you don't have time to explain every single thing. You might not, let me not say you don't, because some people might be that powerful. You might not have time to explain every single detail about your solution, but infographics help things happen quickly. And so the screen comes on, an arrow points to somewhere, the screen shifts, the arrow points to another place. If it's possible for you to explain your solution that way, then you want to take that route and just make it as fast as possible, because this demo video thing can be the hardest part of the solution. Like just making sure that this 120 seconds, we don't exceed it. Because if you exceed, the judges they're only obligated to listen to the first 2 minutes. If it is 4 minutes, they're not listening to the remaining two, it's just the first two. And once that time is up, they're going to the next person. And it doesn't make you look prepared. So you want to be able to use infographics to explain. Leave perfect, make it functional. This is because they know that you're a student. So you've already spent your resources on the solution. You're not supposed to also go and spend so much resources on making sure that the video is as polished and as clean as possible. You're not a company right now. You guys are a group, right? Working on a solution. What they want to see is an explanation of how your solution works to solve the problem that you have said you are solving. So don't worry about, we want the phone to drop from the top of the screen and then spin 360, lay flat, the thing will now come up in 3D animation. Leave all that. Focus on Have we been able to explain how our solution works? Yes, that's fine. Submit and leave the page. This other one, you can do it when you're taking your solution to market because you want to grab people's attention. And you don't need to do that right now because they are asking you to submit your solution. They will watch your video. You don't need to convince them of anything. So leave perfect. Just make it functional that it takes them from point A to point B and says, this is how our solution works. This is what we have done. End of story. The user flow diagram that I mentioned here is because I saw this app during the last year demo day again. It's called Head Home. Head Home is an app that they made for dementia patients who usually suffer from wandering episodes. So dementia is a mental illness, and one of the ways that it mainly manifests is that the person who suffers from the illness will wander away from their house and just out. Sometimes they go back to a childhood home, or there's all these like psychological explanation for why they choose the places they wander off to. And they use a user flow diagram in their demo video because of the complexity of explaining how their solution works, because there's so many people involved in the process. I think I included it here. Yes, I had to take a screenshot because I couldn't figure out how to close this and then find only the picture. So this was what they did, and then they were able to show each stakeholder's role in the delivery of the solution. So you see the one in blue, and at the top right corner here, the color codes explain why they're color coded the way they are. So there's the patient, the caregiver, and the volunteer. And the patient, so you see the patient starts the wandering episode, wanders out of the safe zone or gets lost in the safe zone. The safe zone is where the person lives right now, that the volunteer and the whole community is aware of. That's why they call it the safe zone. Once they leave that area, they are unsafe because people are not familiar with that place that they are going to. And so he then explains if they wander off, the help is automatically sent out to the person's volunteer or caregiver. And like this just explained everything. So when they finished the video, they put the user flow diagram at the end. And it was a way of saying, if you're not able to understand everything we've explained since, look at this one and know what we're saying. And so that's why I included it there, that you can also use the user flow diagram because it will help you explain what you're trying to say if you do not have enough time. And the color code thing is fantastic as well because now you can see exactly what is what, right? Then these are the demo video guidelines. I've gone over a few of them already, but I'm going to send the slide to Sheung so it'll still get to everyone and you can go over it in your spare time as well. I think I've gone over everything here. Yes, your video audio must be in English for you to be eligible. The video must be produced at 1x speed and it cannot be accelerated to meet the duration requirement. So it has to be 1x speed, 2 minutes, and then you're done. Record your video in landscape mode because you're going to be uploading it on your YouTube channel and then sending them the link, right? So yeah, that's all for this demo video side. The submission criteria, yes, this is where we're going to talk about the stories again. And first things first is clearly describe the project, the challenge that you're solving for using a problem statement. This is how you will create your problem statement for the solution you are submitting. Now, your problem statement addresses who, what, where, when, and why. And this is because you want to be able to say what your problem is, why it is a problem, and then move on to the next. So they've said here it shouldn't be more than one paragraph. As little as 2 to 3 sentences is fine, but you can take it as max as 5 to 6. It requires it presents an opportunity of significance and urgency. And in the simplest terms possible is for you to explain how this problem affects your community and possibly the world if it is that wide an issue, so that they can understand the size and the scope of the problem. Who is experiencing this issue? What parts of the community? This is where you want to be able to bring statistics and quantify the problem. This is what I meant when I was saying quantify the problem, is you want to be able to say 20% of the population. Even that population, if you say 20%, it's not everybody that can immediately deduce, okay, that is about 100 million people. You also want to be able to say 20% of the population, which is 100 million girls, suffer from hearing impediments. This affects their ability to participate in life as they should. That is the who. The what of the problem is described here. This affects their ability to be able to participate in life. Where, in what context, they are not able to attend school and be as effective as they should. They're not able to get jobs because their ability to communicate with their colleagues and their managers and the rest is impaired. And not everybody has that patience. Why is it a problem? Is because on a larger scale, if less and less women are getting employed, it affects the quality of life that the society can experience. So that is the who, what, where, when, and why, and you have explained your problem clearly. So that is for creating the perfect problem statement. Also, what UN SDGs and targets are you choosing? Yes, before I forget this, so with the SDGs, there's 17 of them, and I've actually gotten asked the question of what if my problem doesn't have an SDG that it is attached to. I'm going to make bold to say that's impossible because at face value, it might look like all of them might not address your issue, but there are targets. And even after the targets, there are indicators. So, for example, the SDG that I'm working on for a project that I'm doing right now is SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And I'm specifically looking at the youth employment angle to it. And so what I did was I went to decent work and economic growth and I checked the targets, and specifically targets 8.2, 8.5, and 8.6 targets the employment issue. More specifically, 8.5 targets youth issue. So the 8.5 indicator, the 8.5 target is reduce the number of youths not in employment, education, or training. Now that's exactly what I need because what I'm working on is something that targets youth unemployment. So don't just look at the SDG at face value. You want to go into the targets and indicators, and you'll be able to find something that speaks to your problem. And then you can pick that and include not just SDG 1, but you can say SDG 1, target 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. And why, what inspired you to select these specific goals and targets. And this is your opportunity to tell your story. Yes. So here you want to appeal to the human side of the person that is reading your entry. After you've stated your facts in your problem statement and you've said 20 million people experience this and this is why it's a problem, when you come down to why you selected it, you want to be able to tell a personal story. Maybe you've had an experience, a direct experience with it. And let's say maybe the community where you grew up, there were not a lot of women that had substantial employment. So a lot of them were probably petty traders and they were not able to actually get themselves white collar jobs because of the hearing impediment. You want to include that here because they're asking you what inspired you to select this specific goals. Why did you pick the one that you picked? What story do you have to back up why you did it? And so that's what you want. You want to appeal to their human side and evoke a bit of oxytocin and just make them more invested in you, make them more generous, make them more trusting, make them bond with your story because this is how you will pick them up in their problem and take them to the pursuits. So that is for project setup. Then implementation, describe the architecture that your team chose. This is where you want to go into a high level explanation of the different components that are involved in your solution. This is not the time for you to explain every single detail about TensorFlow or every single detail about Firebase or Angular or Flutter. You want to explain specifically the components responsible for the delivery of your solution. Not everything about the product or the platform, but specifically the things that you have used in your solution. And then what specific products and platforms did you choose to implement and why? Here is where you have to talk about. I know one of the questions at the demo day was why did you pick this particular product over this one? Because there might be about two or three that perform the same function. Maybe one is just newer and has more libraries or repositories, and you can use that as your response to say this is why we chose this over this, right? Feedback, testing, and iteration. Feedback from users. So here you want to walk them through the steps you took to test your solution with real users. Provide 3 specific feedback points that you received. What did you learn? How did it help you improve your solution? And what were the 3 things you implemented and improved? So those 3 specific feedback points now, you now want to talk about what you did about the feedback that you received. Now, these can be all challenges, or you can choose to do 2 challenges and 1 positive feedback. Maybe one person said the UI of the product is really good. They found it very easy to navigate. There was the home screen. They knew exactly where the account was. The colors helped them understand exactly what was going on. Yeah, and you want to be able to explain that as well. Or if maybe the first time you went to test the solution, it was completely shit and nobody liked it, you want to be able to say that as well. The feedback points you received was 1, 2, 3, and they were all bad, and this was what we did to improve on the solution. Because again, this is solutions challenge. Code testing and iteration highlights one challenge that you faced while building your code. I remember at the beginning I was saying even if it took you 15, 20 tries for you to get it right, say it, because you're a student developer. Don't be ashamed of the journey. It is where you are that matters right now. This submission that we through it all we persisted. So you want to be able to say that as well. Your success and completion is the pursuit. So if you remember from the first few slides, we talked about problem and pursuit. So from project setup, you brought them into the problem that you are solving. You said, this is what we're experiencing. Come with us on this journey to solving this problem. And then here at success and completion, which is 7 and 8, is where you want to talk about what we are doing to make sure that this doesn't happen to as many people as possible anymore. Now, how does your solution address the challenge? Describe the success using metrics and goals. You want to bring those facts that you took at the beginning and show how this percentage of people that we spoke about before, this is how they will no longer be affected by this solution. Don't be, let me find the right word for this. Don't be as arrogant as saying 50% of people were experiencing it, and with this our solution, those 50%, all of them will be helped, because truthfully, that might not be possible. So you want to be able to say with our app and with the kind of reach that we envision that we're going to have, and this one is not just word of mouth, or you want to be able to use metrics to explain, your goals, your outcomes. And so you want to say with the reach that we have right now and the reach that we envision that we will have based on market analysis, we will be able to help 30% of people right now, as we can see, maybe through partnerships and through the upscaling of our product. And when we eventually take it to market and we're able to reach more communities, we might be able to reach a larger number. But for right now, where we stand today, we are realistically going to be able to help 30% and reduce that 50 to 20. And because we have taken 30% of people out of this particular problem. What Google technologies are you going to be using to track your usage analytics? Companies of all sizes use BigQuery, so you want to throw in the ad there, and maybe you're going to use BigQuery to track your business intelligence analysis, and you can mention that there as well, because don't forget, you're supposed to be using Google products to solve for these SDGs. Then you upload your demo video that you would have recorded. The demo video has to show a working application and how a user will interact with the solution. Perfect. This now means when you're doing the video, you have to think as a user. So it is even best if the person who helps with the recording of the video is someone who has never heard about your solution before. Because when you are so close to it, there is a tendency that things that you have overlooked simply because of over information might be confusing to somebody outside. It's not confusing to you because you've been in the team from the beginning. So you understand exactly why it is happening the way it is happening. But for somebody who has never heard about it before, this thing that you understand so easily might actually be an issue. So for your demo video, you want to try and let an outsider be the one doing the video with you guys, so that if it's anything that is confusing, the person can tell you, oh, but you just jumped from here to there, and you might have overlooked it in your mind because you are so close to it, you know exactly what your solution is. Feel free to include infographics, yeah, I mentioned this earlier, or visual representation of the data in your demo. Now you've taken them from problem to pursuit. Now the journey has almost ended, but now you have to talk about, after the pursuit, this scalability. What is your plan for the next steps of your project? When you take it to market, how do you plan to reach a larger audience? Here you can talk about what kind of machine learning techniques that you're using. Because I know here the HairSitter guys, they explain that for their solution, they use TensorFlow and a bit of speech recognition. And so they're going to be consistently building on that, so that the repository of sounds that the app can recognize is continuously building itself over time. And they don't have to go into it to keep doing it manually. But there was so many like technical explanations. I didn't really, I flew off at that point. But I understood that what they were saying was they were going to be using machine learning. And so the repository of sounds would keep being able to build itself. So even if they sell it off to a different set of people, when those people eventually go into the back end, they're not confused at what they're seeing. Because that's also something you can do. You can decide you want to sell it when you finish if you don't want to carry on. Explain how the technical architecture of your solution will support in its current state or with minor changes, scaling to a larger audience. And this is almost the same as what I explained before. And so you go ahead and explain that part. Something I'm also going to say is, don't overemphasize the monetization aspects when they ask you about how you plan to reach a larger audience, but don't shy away from it. So you want to be realistic to say, right now, we need money to handle this aspect for us to be able to reach a larger audience. But right now, this is what our solution can do. So if we're going to be able to scale this app to market, we're going to need more money, or more resources to sort out this particular aspect that is a huge problem for us right now. So that's what I mean when I say don't be realistic about the things that you will need to move your solution forward, but don't overemphasize the monetary aspect of it because it's supposed to be something that you're doing from your heart to humanity, basically. So that's for your submission criteria. We went over this problem statement earlier, and this is just an restating of some of the points we've talked about before. Yeah. And then judging criteria. So now this is what they are going to be looking out for when they are reading through your solution. So they're going to be asking themselves, does this establish a clear challenge using problem statements? Are they able to explain the SDGs they're working with their feedback from users? What did they say? And were the users even real users? 'Cause I'm seeing feedback points they receive from real users. So this is what they are going to be asking themselves, and it's kind of like a cheat sheet for you so that you understand what they are looking out for when they are reading through your entry. And so you can go over this when you're submitting your things and just understand what your entry looks like from a judge's perspective. And so I think this is actually really really good because a lot of these questions here I've heard them being asked at demo days, and so it's as legit as it comes. Yeah. And finally, these are the 4 points I'm going to leave you guys with. Is firstly, everybody has the ability to be a powerful storyteller because we live life, we own our experiences are as authentic as they can possibly be. So you have the ability to actually tell good stories. The problem is you don't believe it, so you never actually take out time to immerse yourself in your experience, in the world that is around you. What exactly am I doing today in this my story? Where am I? Am I the antagonist today? Am I the protagonist? What is my role in today's story? And so that's what this first point is for. Secondly, language has been developing for centuries. You will not know all the words in the English language, but if you prepare ahead of time, you'll be able to know the kind of words that you need for you to put your idea across in the easiest way possible. And now there are even tools for that. Maybe you know what you want to say, but you don't know how to say it. You can go into your AI tool and just type there, how do I express this? Give me one word for this. If you don't like that one word, ask for synonyms. There is technology that can assist you to be more articulate, more effective in your delivery. And so you want to take advantage of what you have. Thirdly, and like I mentioned before, your story begins the minute you decide that you want to participate. So everything that you begin to experience from then on is something that is ultimately going to be a tool in your arsenal for you to be able to deliver an effective pitch. Lastly, be open to the idea that you might not know what you're doing the first time around because, again, you are a Google developer student, not a Google developer expert. So give yourself permission to be a student, to learn. I know a lot of people, especially like with tech communities, you're already doing so much and you've worked on this and that and that and that and that big thing, but you are a student. That's even the first criteria for you to be in GDSC. So you need to give yourself permission that I might not know what I'm doing this first time around, but I'll be damned if I don't try. So you try and you put yourself out there and you be as confident as possible when you are explaining your experience. And if you're confident enough, that confidence will be contagious, and the person who is listening to you or reading your entry will eventually believe what you're saying simply because you believed it enough to tell it the first time around. Right. So thank you guys so much. And I'm going to be handing over to Sheon now as our honorable moderator. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for attending, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, William. I I've learned a lot from this session. Lord knows I've even taken down notes for my IT and project defense. 'Cause I feel like anyone that didn't even have an idea of like storytelling right now, you like have enough to go into the world. Like this was very
Thank you.
informative. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's the aim. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you. I'm going to leave the floor open for questions. If anyone has any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and Lillian is here to attend to them. So yeah, we all learned a lot. Me too. Okay, so I actually have a question while the questions are coming from the
Okay.
audience. So okay, yeah, you mentioned at the point. I think the point where you were talking about like it was more in the beginning stage. You mentioned when we were talking about functionality, how we should prioritize
Yeah.
functionality over like that sort of perfect appearance, spinning animation, all that attractive stuff
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
marketing or for any reason. Yeah. So my question is, because I got asked this by one of the teams. Would you
Yeah.
say that like currently for teams building, it's safe to say that maybe they shouldn't like focus on marketing after like it's not really as essential, even aside just like the
Mm,
whole like pleasant feel. Should they just like hold on, or is there like any edge they get for marketing? Because I have people that were talking about like can they have a marketing strategist on their team and everything. So like they weren't sure like should they focus on that or should they like does it give them any edge
mm.
anyway?
Well, no, really, because you're still eventually going to get the opportunity to upscale your product. So at the beginning stage, you want to focus on actually making a solution that solves a problem. It's okay if you can afford, in terms of resources, to have a marketing person on the team, especially maybe for the testing and iteration stage. But it's not, I don't know that it adds any particular edge because nobody gets asked how many people have used it between the time you built it and now. What you get asked is how effectively does it solve your problem? So you want to focus more on that.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, that's pretty clear. Okay, so I guess we can focus on the other things aside marketing then. Is there any more comments? Is there any more questions rather? You can drop them in the comments. But Lillian will also be sharing her social media handles for us in case you have like questions beyond
Oh
this question.
yeah, yes. I'll put it in the comments section.
Okay, all right. So I'll just leave this open for a bit. I'm just going to hold on for like a few seconds to see if any questions come in, then we'll address them.
All right then, no problem.
Oh, okay, so we have a first question. Um, the question reads, "Hi, my name is Dada. What is the biggest pitfall you see students fall into?" I'm assuming that that is tailored to this like solutions challenge. What's the biggest pitfall you see students fall into in this?
Right. Okay. Let me think about this because this is a really important one. Because this is you asking what should I be looking out for as I'm going into it. I don't know if I know about the biggest pitfalls, but I think what people don't usually pay attention to in the beginning is role distribution. So there's usually, like, you know how they don't usually take having a manager for the project as seriously as they should, because you have everybody on the team, all four of them are devs. So who is reporting to who? Who has the documentation for this thing you guys are working on? How do you know what stage is next? Because all of you are in the same tech field. You need somebody who is on the outside that is used to being in charge of devs, right? So if you have two devs, you want to have maybe one UI person, and you want to have somebody who can manage. If the UI person can double as a project manager, or if any of the devs can double, they can do that. But it's important that you pay attention to having somebody that everybody reports to periodically, because it helps you with deadlines and helps you be on time. Because I think the entries are going to close February 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And so you need somebody that will be on top of things, updates in this solution challenge thing, to say, we have 1 week to deadline, we haven't done demo video, because it's easy to get carried away with building the solution, because that is truly the most important aspect. But don't focus so much on that that you are now not focusing on how are we even going to submit it. So having somebody that will be in charge of the project is definitely very, very important. Everybody on the team shouldn't be doing the same thing, is what I'm going to say, that I've seen most people have that to be an issue.